And this song starts with the words Katari, Katari. Why do you tell me such bitter words? Katari, why do you speak and torment my heart?
Katari, Katari, perché me dicisti parole amare, perché me per il cuore me tormente, Katari.
And we both are pretty sure that you know this piece of music because this is one of the top songs ever part of the repertoire of tenors, mostly tenors. In fact, that's what I wanted to open with. I have 90% of the times heard it in the voice of a tenor, 10% in the baritones, because why not? They say, how hard can it be to sing an aria for a tenor, and so there are baritones that like to go for it. But before we proceed also with detail, there are also some sopranos that like to sing this as well. Before we get there, a couple of things around Neapolitan music. First thing that I wanted to share, and I think that you may agree to this, Katia, is that I was asking myself whether our Italian friends and from Naples, from the region of Naples, do they have blood or do they have lava in their veins? Because Napolitan music is so expressive, is so emotional, no matter whether you believe or you like the words of Katari Katari, but from the first moment you sing a piece of Neapolitan music, you feel like emotion is exploding all over yourself. And I have always asked also in that from that sense, from that perspective myself, um, how do they do to handle that level of emotion? Because when you think of French music, French is usually very fine, very like contained, like I am suffering but still suffering, in a very if not quiet, sort of quiet way, you say that you're suffering. But our colleagues, the
I'm
Italians,
suffering in fancy.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But you just share with us, Katari, Katari, perché mi dici sti parole amare perché me pare che tormiente Katari, non te scurda, because the following phrase, non te scurda, Cataggio data coreo Katari, non te scurda. And then we are going to talk about how affrettando, how the emotion and the notes grow. And well, let's keep it there. What comes to your mind, Katia, when you think of Neapolitan music?
Well, let's remind that Italian people is very passionate people. They leave everything at most. There are not mid sensations for Italian people, and I think that's pretty beautiful because sometimes, as you just mentioned, we contain what are the rest of the people. Gonna think about if I express too much, that I'm happy, that I'm passionate, that whatever. And they live their lives like it's the very last day of their lives. So and that is reflected in their music, in their food, in their culture, and that's lovely. I admire that. Um, and we also have to remember that Italian is a self-singing language. If you speak Italian, you are singing.
Already, yeah.
So this very yes. So this combination in the music, I think that is very interesting to approach as a musician. You can't sing. Uh, Katari, Katari. You have to live your life there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. That from the very first moment you start singing a Neapolitan song, you feel like the music is taking all your heart and emotions at once. Because we have said many times that when you don't have a good, homogeneous uh, mature technique, you will not get away with bel canto. But now, talking about Neapolitan music, you're not going to get away with it if you don't have your emotions. We have an expression in Spanish that says a flor de piel. Unless you're really feeling it, nobody's going to believe you that you are actually suffering. And that's what makes magic out of the Neapolitan music. And I recall that in season 1 or 2, when we first talked about this piece of music, I was sharing with you that you just said that if you speak Italian, you're already singing. But also, the way this Neapolitan music is written is usually, not always, but usually very comfortable for the tenor voice. And you don't need to have a spectacular technique to get away with Neapolitan music, but you have to be able to communicate with it. So you may be the most perfect singer with the most amazing technique, but if you don't transmit anything, nobody is going to believe you're suffering. And we're going to provide you with some of the examples of this piece. I wanted to tell you that I am reading the score. Actually, I have it here. So I have it also in the screen just to guide and help people follow us. But if at some point I am reading something that is not on the screen, don't be surprised. I am not so. In fact, I am not a tech guy. Maybe you know, Katia, that now many musicians read from their tablets. I I just can't. I really can't. If I don't have the paper at hand and turn the page, I feel like I really just can't. So I want to apologize if at some point what you see on the screen doesn't match what I am reading. So we start saying we haven't mentioned that the music is by Maestro Salvatore Cardillo. So he's the composer of Core ngrato. It is written, at least the score that I have tells andante moderato. Take into account that when we talk about popular music and Neapolitan music, in a way, let's say it's not classical music in the sense that it is that fixed, that academic. So it is the scores may have some I would like to say the person who transcribed it may could have taken some liberties in the transcription, adding a tempo that was not part of the original score, or adding something on a note or a semi note or anything that he thinks that was missing. That's what happens usually with popular or folklore songs. And that could be the case for the Corengrato in case you have a copy of this at hand and you say, Ricardo, where did you get that? Because mine doesn't say. That could be the reason for that. So, it starts saying Qatari, and let's provide the explanation that Qatari is a way of saying, well, the name happens to exist in many languages. The name is Catalina. Places they are called Cathy or Kathy in English, and for the case of the region of Naples, it is Qatari. So Katari or Catalina or Catherine or Kathy. So he is
Or Katia.
or Katia could be. And it starts, at least my score starts with piano. And that is very important because, as it has happened in many other episodes, and as we have seen in many other pieces of music that our friends and colleagues, the tenors, are singing, start exaggerating everything. I was trying to recall when was the last time that I heard a tenor starting in piano, actually, and I couldn't think of any. Uh,
And that's the why Sopranos has to do the work.
and that's why somebody else has to do the work. Somebody has to study the score. Somebody has to the study and do it as the score says. Because if you start full, and I will go back to this, if you don't work on the dynamics, on the volumes, on the intention, it will all seem very plain. If you start Catari, Catari, perché mi dici queste parole, amore? It doesn't really make sense. So it has to flow from a softer. Catari, Catari, perché me dices di parole amore? If you see, I have already added some small changes in the volume. It is not only that the notes are changing. Ah, by the way, those who will watch us for the very first time on video, you will notice that I move my body and I move the hands all the time. It has nothing to do that I am nervous or anything. It shows that I am kinesthetic. I am a kinesthetic person that if you're just sitting, it's like I am about to die, so I have to move the hand here and there and so. But when you just listen to the audio, it's exactly the same. Don't think that it is only because the camera is on. So you may hear me talking about Maestro Verdi, and if I say anything, then I am moving and hitting my feet on the floor. So just don't be surprised. So going back to that. So Catari, Catari, perché me dices tis parole amore? Of course, it is as Katia has also shared with us in the past. It also has to do with the understanding of the emotion of each of the singers. So you may say, no, Ricardo, why do you start adding those changes, those slight changes in the volume when I could do it later? And I could tell you, well, of course, everybody can have his own proposal. My only point here is that you don't do it monotonous. And going back to my first comment, that's exactly what tenors do. They do it monotonous. They start Katari, Katari. Even the second Katari, that it is a little higher than the first one, it's exactly the same volume. So with the difference of only a couple of notes between the first and the second, you don't really appreciate any change on anything. Unless you are a musician and you say, hey, that's off pitch or that's right on pitch. But if you are not and you're just listening, you say, why? Even if you're just starting, it sounds repetitive. Katari, Katari. You see, monotonous, and that is not what this piece is about. So you grow, perché me dices di parole amore. And I wanted to say also about the final syllable of each of the phrases, because it is also a very bad habit of our tenors, our very dear tenors. And let's not give another opportunity to Katia to justify that the sopranos have to do the job. Because if you have heard the other episodes in this season, you have noticed that I am really against of seizing the notes vulgarly. And what happens here is that this is made so vulgar, so exaggerated, that instead of sounding like a beautiful piece of music, "Perché me dices tis parole, amore? Perché?" I mean, that is such. I really can't stand that. I really can't. You come from a softly nice way, amore. You see, you can even turn it into a piano or a pianissimo to make the note cease beautifully. Why, amore? Perché? No, no. You haven't even reached the peak of the emotion of the song. How can you start from the very first phrase doing that? But let's leave room for the first comments for Katia because I already got mad at the tenors.
Well, when we have a repetition of words of phrases, for example, just right here in the beginning, we said Katari twice. You can tell it in the same way. That's something that my teacher have told us several times. You have to make a difference between the first and the second time, not just because it's here in the score that you start with a piano and there is a crescendo in the second category. Uh, if you are saying the name of the person twice, is because for a reason. It is for a reason. So I'm not gonna say Ricardo, Ricardo, Charlie, Charlie. It's not about that. It's like Ricardo, Ricardo. Please pay attention of what I'm saying. Okay, so everything on the score is there for a reason. So Katari, Katari. If you think about your text this kind of inflections will be organic, will be natural. It doesn't have to sound plain also because when we talk, there are natural accents, just like I said in this very moment. We have to make an emphasis in a point, in a word, something that we need to be clear about. So try to apply this to your music, to your song.
And if you're saying for the second time the name of the person you're talking to, it just means like, of course, you are insisting. Maybe you're really not getting the attention because otherwise you wouldn't give her name twice, right? Just as Katia exemplified, you don't say Katia Katia. I mean, she doesn't have a double name, it's just Katia. But if she is not paying attention, you, depending on the type of the relationship you have, you insist Katia. Maybe you now accentuate the first Ka and then the sentia so that she calls the attention. If you maybe, but if you're very upset and you say Katia, then, but you don't say Katia Katia, Ricardo Ricardo, Paco Paco, never. So that explains why Maestro Cardillo started with a softer in volume and lower notes, Katari. But now I want to call your attention, Katari, Peke, and then you start passing your message. And what is that message? Why are you telling me these bitter words? So what we know now is that this guy is suffering, and he's suffering a lot. He's suffering like a good Neapolitan guy. So he's really feeling it. Well, we Latin American people also have some of these songs that we call for cortarse las venas, so that you can cut veins because of the very much emotion you have and you are suffering. So, what is the message that I want to pass to Katari? Katari, Katari, perché me dices ti parole amore, amare? Why are you telling me these bitter words? But still, you haven't reached the peak of the emotion. This is the first phrase that you tell her. Perché me dices ti parole amare? And as I was just saying earlier, you need to decide on how you want to emphasize at volume or do something with the phrase so that people understand what is the message that you want to pass. The second message that you want to tell to Qatari is perché me parli o core me turmiente Qatari. So why do you torment my heart when you speak? We might find this a little exaggerated, like, hey man, it is the second phrase and you've already built a complete drama around it. But that's emotion that the singer has to believe. Because if the singer doesn't believe this level of emotion, there is no way he's going to pass it to the audience. Then notice that there is something, and I think that I have to move the score on the screen because I am already reading something that you are not. Okay, so non te scurda, katajuda te okore katari, non te scurda. So the second message, this would be the third, because the first one was that you're telling me such bitter words. The second, that when you speak, you're tormenting my heart. And the third message is, please don't forget that I gave you my heart. That's what it means. And there is a notation that says ralentando un poco, because the purpose of the composer is that this ralentando is like, I will try to explain it like freezing time. You come from this rhythm. When you come ralentando means that you have to pay a certain attention to this part of the message. So, non te scurda, catajo da te ocore catari, non te scurda. So don't forget that I gave you my heart. And this part is very important. That's why it is written like that. And if you notice, even if you don't read music, you can see on the score that, well, a quick note. If you see around above the middle, this tends to be higher. Below the middle of the five lines tend to be center or low notes. So if you notice, the whole phrase goes from center to low notes from the register of a tenor, which means that the tenor is not going to be very comfortable. Which means that the tenor is probably going to change the notes and sing it a little higher if he doesn't do it well. But there is a trick with this part of the register of the voice. This is, from my perspective, where you can add more emotion because you use more of your chest voice. Non te scurda. If you give the right sound to all these notes, they really sound beautiful. If you're not doing it well, they will sound also plain, or maybe like a little rushed. Like non te scurda cataggio da teo core catari. But that's not the way it has to be done. This that she has. That you're telling her not to forget because you're asking her, please don't forget that I gave you my heart. This message is so important that it is sung rallentando and it is sung in the lower notes of the register of a tenor. So this is really important. Because if you're a singer and you're looking always for the notes that are above the F, and you say that is important, that is not the correct way to read the score. That is only where you're showing off that you have a voice. But here, the composer is asking you pay attention to this part. No, non te scurda catage date occorre Catari, non te scurda. Don't forget that I gave you my heart. And it makes sense because if you're telling someone, don't forget that I gave you my heart, it could be like that. Don't forget that gave you my heart. You don't tell, don't forget that I gave you my heart because it doesn't make sense, you see. Now that I overdid the volume, and you notice how the intention is lost when you exaggerate. But again, another is insisting on that our colleagues, the friends and tenors, need to be more careful on how they do it because I have never seen a tenor or heard a tenor, hopefully there is one somewhere, that pays attention to this. This doesn't even it doesn't say forte or there is no notation on the volume, but the way it is written, it tells you that it cannot be done out loud. Well, any additional comments on this part, Katia, that you'd like to share?
Yes, when I was trying to find my low voice, my teacher was trying to help me because she couldn't tell sing where you speak because everybody knows that my voice is like above and higher. So probably the idea that helped me the most it was when she said try to find your chest voice where you cry, where you start to feel this color and this sound. And so I think that the notes are according to this idea. Um, I think that this phrase gives the sense to the song name because we are talking about a heart. Sorry, my ideas were mixed. About a heart that is not grateful, that is not reminding everything that has received from the singer, all the love, all the stories. There is not memory of all the lived things for this heart. So I think that is probably one of the most important phrases. The notes are coming down, guiding you to your chest voice because you are suffering. You are about to cry, probably.
And thanks for noting that, for pointing that out, because now to reinforce that message, when you have this notation on the score, it means that you can take your time to keep the note and notice that it says non te scurda. So the singer has to decide what to do with this te scurda. It is naturally the longest note of this bar, But even not only it is the longest, it also has the option to keep it longer. And barely, because of course you want to keep the note for longer when it is high, but when it is low, very few singers want to do it, right? But if you do it, you have to do it smartly because too long and if it hasn't been properly placed, it's going to sound again plain. "Non te." I mean, that sound is even boring. "Non te." So the singer has to be very smart on how he wants to not only give the sing it on pitch, but how am I going to make it interesting for people? And interesting doesn't mean that you're going to sing it higher because you are reaching a very important part of the emotion. And I was telling you that we are sharing about the dynamics, Katari, then Katari, insisting, then passing the three messages. You're tormenting me with your words. You have forgotten the heart that I gave you, and then you have the key here because now afretando, naturally you're going to change to Katari, Katari, che vene a dicere, stuporla come lo spassame. You see, you even if there are no other notations than the affrettando and the series of notes that come, the words themselves. Of course, if you speak Italian, you are close to understanding Neapolitan, but if you don't, you look for the translation and you notice that you're saying again Katari, speaking two times again to the girl, Katari, but now faster, Katari, che viene a dicere, stuparla come la spassame. Of course, when you sing in the higher register, naturally it feels more dramatic. But my word of advice would be don't rush too soon into the drama because it's going to get higher after. So if you spend all your ammo here, when you want to reach the following part that is much heavier, you're going to be exhausted or nobody's going to believe you. If you build it correctly, you will see Katari, Katari, che viene a dicere. Second part that we are reaching. Katari, Katari, che viene a dicere. Sto parla. And the third one, which will be even higher, and people will notice the progression of the area. I notice that I am moving the hands and that they are not fully seen on the screen. Forgive me for that. But I am moving the hands on the to the camera to show how it starts at a certain amount of volume and contention, then it rises, and on the third part that we haven't reached, it reaches the peak of emotion. So be smart on how you manage your resources so that you don't run out of voice before the end, and you don't run out of emotion. Because if you have already thrown everything in the beginning, there will be nothing left to throw at the end. And so, this would be my words for the second part where it starts rushing. How about you, Katia? What would be your thoughts?
Um, I heard that in theater you can take your text and think about the four elements: earth, wind, water, and fire. Probably you could think of the phrases as one of the elements, one of these different elements. For example, I would think probably that the first part of the piece that we have already talked about, it's a kind of wind. You are just introducing your feelings, introducing your emotions, trying to caught the attention. In the second part, it's probably water. Definitely, I wouldn't think about fire. It's water. It flows a little bit more, but yeah, definitely, it's not the peak, not yet. So yes, in this part, you are desperate, but it's not the climax yet. So be careful.
And in this second part that is flowing, the words are Katari. Please don't forget the meaning of those words that I share with you. Those words that you left to me left me shuddering. You do not think of the pain I feel. You do not think. You do not. care. And those words, when you read them, they are hard. I mean, that you face someone and you tell him, I see that you don't care, that you don't mind, that you don't even give a piece of your thoughts to the pain I feel. I don't think I know many people who would dare stand in front of another telling him or her, hey man or hey girl, you don't care about how I feel. Because that puts you in a very weak position towards the other person. So with that weakness that you're accepting yourself for yourself, you have to face the other person. Tu non c'è piensas tu, dolore mio, tu non c'è piense tu, non te ne cure. Then comes the actual peak of the piece of the song, because you are for the very first time, and for this moment the tenor says, oh my god, I will finally be able to sing a G. That's what they are expecting, that they will be able to sing a G, but because they will be able to say core core ingrato. And the thing here is that we have um, in a way, what Katia is expert in, that are several notes, and that also many singers do not like to sing, because the core, core. Usually, the singers sing only one note. There are three notes written here, and they usually sing one, omitting the one in the middle when you write core, ingrato. Do you see? Uh, and it happens because in ngrato also happens the same. You have uh, to do the same singing in singing this small ornament of three notes before the grato, and that is usually not done. Because you are so enthusiastic for your G's and the A that is going to come and all the high notes that you don't usually care about those notes. But as we have also shared in the past, those notes matter because those notes mean something. So, with that in mind, Katia, what would be your word of advice for singers working on this area, or for people who want to appreciate this area better? I know that you're waiting for the core. I know that everybody's waiting for that, but after the core ingrato comes something that we usually do horribly. So, what would be your advice for this
Uh,
part?
well, please don't believe that a high note is the most important part of your song. It's important to have a high note because it
And I think we may have lost connection.
you are talking and suddenly you feel like, please, why are you making me, and your voice starts to crack. Well, that's happening here. So please study your ornaments or you're gonna ruin the song.
Yeah, and I think it is a good advice also, as you say. You think of it as if your heart is breaking, even though that opposes, because when you're telling cor ingrato, the verse cor, it is a sort of a yell of desperation. You just have told the
Yeah.
woman, you don't care about me, you don't care about my feelings, you're hurting me all the time. And that's when you say, ungrateful heart. That's what cor ingrato means, ungrateful heart. So, core ingrato. You see, but I would say that even if your voice feels touched by the emotion, it's better than if you just yell out "Core, core, ingrato," because it doesn't make sense. Even if you're upset, you still are feeling the emotion. You are not mad at her in the negative sense of it. I mean, it's not that.
Yes, you don't have to sing loud just because you can. Um, if you are a singer and it's not your first time on stage, probably there is people that has seen you singing in other occasions, in other pieces of music, and they already know that you you have a big voice. So this is not the place. This is not the song. To show off that you have a big voice. It's not the point of the score. You are gelling, you are taking your heart out of your chest and showing to the other person what or the way he or she makes you feel. You're about to cry.
And
Please.
with that in mind, something else, even though the score, at least my scores, says that you have a crescendo, we know that a high notes sound louder than the center and the lower one. So naturally the volume will increase. So I would challenge the singer to go for a filatura or do something special with the taipiliato so that it doesn't sound like you're upset. Because if you have a spinto voice, and you know that the spinto voices, once we reach a certain note, everything sounds like a drama. And yes, it is a drama, but you don't sound like Radames. Por ti rivengo, mia dolce Aida, core ingrato. You see, because that's the way it sounds. Core ingrato. You don't do that. Do it more, much more nicer, much more elegant. Core ingrato, t'hai pigliato vita mia. You see, if you play, I am assuming you have a good control of your breath. If you don't, I would suggest you work on it, right? Because if you don't have a good control of your breath, of course you're not going to be able to do that. But working on your breath, imagine that you show the people that you can do that instead of just shouting out "Pigliato!" You "Pigliato! Dai pigliato vita!" People believe that you are suffering without overdoing anything. Of course, that would be my advice if you have a strong voice. If you have a much modest voice, don't try it that way because people will feel that you are tired or that this song was too much for your voice. So you find your way depending on the type of voice that you have. That is only my advice when you have a large voice. Try to work with much softer elements and definitely on the rapping, because it has a repetition, it has a second set of words that nobody sings. And I have to confess, I didn't even know the second part of the song until I studied it. So, to my surprise, there is a repetition with more words because people, after the first one, they just repeat again the "Core ingrato dai pigliato vita mia tutto è passato." On the final words on how to rap this aria, usually when we go for tutto è passato e non c'è piazza. You know, this is again your opportunity to show that you have a beautiful a flat, and there is again this ornament which when you come from a loud volume, it is impossible that it sounds correct. So again, you have to diminish or you have to be smart on how you're going to do it. Because of course you go, "Yes, thank you." This is going to, this is going to sound like messy. So you have to decide on what you're going to do to wrap it up nicely. Of course, if you're just a singer that wants to show, look at the high volume that I have in my voice, you're going to just throw it away. But don't do that because this is a nice song. So think on how would you like to do it? Because okay, I have my A. You say, answer Q. How do you want to wrap this Q? But do it elegant. Again, don't do it vulgarly, as we put the example at the beginning. Don't do what most singers do. Yo, the ooh, the ooh, and even like move the throat or the neck or do something weird. And I know, Katya, you know what I am referring to because I am sure you have seen it many times. Like a turkey. I make example like a turkey. Yeah, the singer moves the neck like a turkey, and wrap it up. But that's not the way. That's not the style of the song. So wrap it up with elegance. What is your advice, Katia, for this final part?
Yes, you try to think that you are not taking your last breath and throwing it to the person. Uh, tu non c'è per no, tu non c'è piensa più, and leave it to the distance. Yes, please. It's not a violent aria. It is a popular, a folk song, yes, but it also deserves respect. It has to be elegant. It's passionate, yes, but you're not singing Wagner, please.
Maybe that's something that singers should have at hand before they start their own recitals. Man, this is not Wagner. Man, this is not Macbeth. Man, this is not Othello. This is a different style.
Please.
And so I hope we have been successful in showing how the piece actually flows from very calm state, increases or gains a little in the drama, and how when you reach the peak, the suggestion is don't explode insanely. Be careful on how you're going to explode those notes because higher volume doesn't mean effectiveness. Usually, much of higher volume only means that you have a very vulgar style of singing. So be careful with what you do or even what you like because, and I think at this point many people will hate or disapprove my comment. Many people say that Corelli or Del Monaco or any other singer with high voice sing it correctly because they sing it out loud all the time. And that is not the case. If you sing it out loud all the time, it means that you didn't really read the score or that you didn't understand it or even that you are unable to do it because as I was telling, if you're unable to if you cannot do that, then means that you don't have a good control of your reading. And you are trying to cover that error by singing out loud all the time. If you sing out loud all the time, nobody will notice that you are incapable of singing a filatura or doing a nice crescendo and diminuendo. That would be a technical limitation of the singer. But final words, Katia, so that we can say goodbye for today.
Yes, well, sometimes I tell my students to think some parts of songs or some music as a recitativo, where the words are the most important and you have to work it in speaking voice. So try this as an exercise. Think about this song as a recitativo, speaking in a pitch because that's the point of the song. It is not about pyrotechnics, it's about to communicate a message. So think about the song as speaking a message with pitches. Uh, Control your breath and think about your voice as a horse. It doesn't have to be a wild horse. It has to be an educated horse. Yeah.
With that being said, we would like to thank everybody for following us. This is our first episode that is transmitted freshly on YouTube. We will continue to do so once monthly for this season 7, and this will be later disseminated through all the other platforms. But for the moment, thank you very much. Thanks everybody, and we'll be seeing each other very, very soon. Thank you.